You want to do it? The son of you.
No.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna do a cut of it. Ready?
Oh, we're gonna do it. I don't actually know the words.
It's Dylan. You're Dylan.
I'm Dylan, so I say what?
Dylan, you son of a bitch.
Dylan! You son of a bitch.
You son of a.
You should be laughing like an idiot.
These are good outtakes, though.
I can't be smiling like.
He's like, what's the matter? Thanks for joining us, man. This is exciting. Thanks for being here. So getting right to it, you're a Marine. How did you go from being a Marine to running a design agency in Austin, Texas?
Out of the Marine Corps, I immediately went and grabbed the first job I could. That was gym sales.
Gym sales?
Yeah, like membership sales at Gold's Gym. Most obvious thing I could do, given my situation. Did that for a few years, hated it, and wanted something new, but didn't know what the long-term thing was yet.
Right.
John, my current business partner, which you know, he was always into development, technology, and things like that, and he offered to teach me how to code.
Oh no! Wow.
So I gave it a shot, hated it, absolutely hated it.
Right. So you got on the other side of it.
Yeah, I started to realize that I actually enjoyed the visual design side of it. Decided to start going to school for that. Midway, I'd say actually towards the end of my program, I decided I wanted to start an agency. It was good timing because Brandon, one of our other partners, both Brandon and John were looking for new opportunity.
Right.
And just, working with your best friends every day, like
Right,
me up.
When did you guys start hitting that value that you started selling? Was it did you pivot from that and we're like, all right, we have kind of a foundation for a value that we created that we're selling? When did you confidently start saying, all right, we're a team of people, we're gonna start growing this company. We need to start charging, studio money.
Yeah.
That's not $50 an hour. It's your project cost, your $200,000, $300,000, 4 or 5 month things. When did that kind of switch? Was it just when you guys started scaling and you were like, we need to hire people and obviously things need to charge, we need to charge more, or was there any other decision making there?
We wanted to grow. We knew in order to do that, we would need to bring on more people, which meant we would need to start charging more money. And it just, I think, organically happened because of that. Within the first year of the business, we had started to bring on employees, and it just kind of, like I said, kind of just snowballed from there. And I don't remember the exact point in time when we decided to, start raising our rates, but it all kind of happened organically over the first year or two.
When you look at failing, is it giving up or is it making too many mistakes? How do you define failing?
I think we've gotten where we're at because of the fact that we've been able to learn from our failures, and not do the same thing over and over again.
Which was what? What was the thing, I guess,
I'm just saying in general, like a problem a lot of people have is they'll fail at something, they'll like do something the wrong way, and then
they'll keep doing
it and not learn from it, not learn from the mistake they made, right?
Sure.
It's like the whole saying of like, they're doing the same thing over and over again but expecting different results. Like, we've been really good at learning from our failures, but at the same time, there was a point where we struggled to figure out where we were failing, which is interesting. The different perspective, if you think about it. I mean, we learned really well from our failures, but we didn't always see where we were failing. We didn't have a lot of self-awareness. And I think, I think that just stems from being so in the weeds all the time when you're a small company trying to grow, you're focusing on growth, but you're also focusing on the day-to-day, do the work, make sure that the client's happy. That consumes you to the point where you're so zoomed in, you can't also be zoomed out.
Right. You're looking at the trees and not the forest, as they say.
Yeah.
And a lot of this for me roots back to like athletics. But for athletics, that was such a drive for me and such a difference when it came down to how your parents talked to you and how they disciplined you versus coaches. And you can obviously attest to this with the military tenfold more than I could with athletics. To go that 5-10% more, that's where I think I got the most out of coaching.
Yeah.
Like from my coaches, like in football and stuff in athletics. So
it's not even about the coach. It's not even about the parents. I think it's more so about the situation that the coach puts you in, which a parent doesn't put you in too much.
Right.
That's what the coach brings to the table. Right. Or more so, another layer of that is what sports, anything competitive will do, right? Puts you in a place of vulnerability and it puts you in a place of discomfort. And when you're putting yourself in those situations over and over again, when you're constantly facing adversity on a regular basis and having to overcome that, that's what breeds mental toughness, right? Finishing that conversation, I think that's the most important thing when it comes down to having a coach. A coach is someone who's going to push you past your limits.
What are we waiting for? Take it!
And even going back to the foundations of our business, right? And that's the culture we wanted within our business, is individuals who are constantly thriving off each other, pushing each other to become better. We're constantly expecting more from ourselves and from everyone else around us. Within the first few years of the business, it was really hard for us to learn how to let go of people who, one, either made a big impact in the company, or two, were just not right for the company. And what I mean by that is, like, say in a scenario, someone who makes a big impact in the company leaves, right? We freaked out. We didn't know what to do with it. We didn't know how to handle the situation. Like, this person day to day has a big impact, and then even more so long term. What do we do without this individual? Or we'd end up holding on to someone who wasn't right for the culture, who was maybe toxic to the culture. We would hold on to that individual for longer than what was comfortable. So those were two things we had to like really figure out how to get out of the patterns that we were clearly in. And I think that just came from it happening over and over again. And once again, going back to the conversation around, like, we learned from our failures, but we didn't always understand where we were making those mistakes. And once those things happened and they kept happening, we always ended up ending up in a better situation than we expected. When something big happens that impacts the company, it's so fresh, you aren't sure how to deal with it. But when it starts to happen over and over again, just like anything, you learn the more you do it, right? And so I just think we became more comfortable with it, and we started to realize that as those things that impacted the company, they're not end-all be-all type situations. If anything, we will always come out on top. What we need to be focusing on is, what is the market wanting? How does the market perceive us? What is the type of work we want to get, and what are those clients asking for? Right. So just breaking outside of our bubble, it took a lot of self-awareness, and it took a lot of it was just difficult to actually make happen. Right. It's not something that comes naturally. I think that stems from the culture of being so busy doing the work. Right. We were so busy for the first 4 or 5 years of the business doing the work that we had to learn how to let that go. And that allowed us to take a step back and focus on the bigger picture and let our employees do the work.
Where do you see a lot of the technology that we use now? Where is it going? Like, I know you guys had some VR and AR clients. I know
it's a heavy question.
You, like 5-10 years from now, what's happening? Where are we?
I think what you're going to see is more, you're going to see more personalization really come through in a really meaningful way.
When you say personalization, what do you mean? Like from a...
Systems, experiences, whatever you want to call it, brands adapting to the needs of an individual.
Right.
The use of data, right? And I realize it's such a sensitive subject, but in the end of the day, there's multiple ways you can think about data. The point is, you've seen the trend of on-demand increase over the years with things like Uber, Instacart, Amazon, Favor.
Instant gratification, almost, in a service
That's
standpoint.
just going to amplify, right? And that all comes down, and personalization is so intertwined with that, right? That's just all going to be amplified. So I think the future is even more on demand, what I want, when I want it, and it's predicted.
She can't have one.
Who says I can't?
The man with a funny hat.
I want one. I want a golden goose.
Right? I think that's the future. I think autonomous cars are going to become more and more real. I think you're going to start really seeing some infrastructure change within cities, right? So you have Uber and Lyft now really, transforming transportation. You have scooters, you have bikes, public transportation exists, right? Buses and trains and all those are going to, becoming less impactful, right? Especially when you're dealing with cities like Austin, where the infrastructure for public transportation is totally messed up, right? Uber? You're gonna start bringing up Black Mirror.
I know, that's where I'm going. That's where my head goes.
You clearly just watched the new season of Black Mirror.
Yeah.
And now
Miley Cyrus is a robot.
Oh, well, they literally have an episode where there's an Uber driver that kidnaps someone.
Right.
And it's the
wrong person. Yeah, that was hilarious. It was a good one. But it wasn't very Black Mirror-ish. It was very like, that could have happened today.
It could have happened today, yeah.
I think the whole Black Mirror part was that they did like the investigative stuff, but all that did was lift the veil on what already exists. It's not like they're not doing that already.
Did you see the VR one?
Yes. You want to play some video games later?
No.
Wink.
Yeah.
Fight.
Yeah. That one made me more uncomfortable than any episode.
Well, what I like about Black Mirror is that it's an hour of obscurity.
Yeah.
Or there's a fun narrative, whatever it is, but there's no commitment to a TV show.
Yeah.
It's 45 minutes to an hour of something. And then it's like a chapter in a book. You just digest it, you have a conversation, you watch the next one.
Yeah.
But it's not like Game of Thrones where there's like 100,000 hours of conversation to be had, right? Yeah. It's like, did you see that one? Yeah, it was crazy. So it gave you an emotional reaction.
So speaking of the future, that's what you're going to see more of. You're going to see more of, you're going to see content be different than content exists today. You're going to see content be more personalized, bringing the personalization conversation, right? It's going to be, you're going to be fed content in different ways than you are today.
Right.
Right? You're already seeing it. Like, think about Instagram, for instance. It's all content, right? In the end of the day, self-generated content. But Instagram in its existence today didn't exist 10 years ago.
Right.
Even 5 years ago is different than it is today, right? Stories is a good example of that.
Sure.
Right? So think about how
it becomes the norm for absorbing information. I read something, I don't know when it was I read it, but in the Middle Ages, one of our newspapers now, like a newspaper, I know, those paper things that had a lot of sheets, really thin?
Never seen one.
I don't know, they're weird. I don't know what they are. Anyways, we had them as kids. They came in like that orange or white.
I'm 25, I don't know what you're talking about.
Anyways, so one newspaper is equivalent to the amount of news someone in the Middle Ages would digest in their lifetime.
Oh, okay. That makes
the
sense.
amount of news,
Yeah.
like,
I get what you're saying.
because basically they're tending to their crops, or they're getting beheaded, or they're a witch.
Tell me, what do you do with witches?
Or something else terrible.
There's only so many things that happened back then.
Right. So, and now we absorb that on a daily basis. Think about since you woke up till before you started having a conversation here and having a handful of beers with me, how much have you absorbed? From news, tech, social, friends, emails, whatever the hell else.
Yeah. Well, as the kids say nowadays, I'm woke. I don't know if that's actually correct.
We're gonna go woke.
Is that right? I was trying to give the camera something good. I don't know if that was. I don't know.
I'm woke.
Is that accurate? I don't know. I don't know how to say the.
We're gonna go with it just because we're old enough to not know if we are right or not.
Actually, yeah.
We're gonna go with woke. We are woke.
Yeah.
But it's a fascinating case study, regardless of looking at how much information the mind is taking on now versus what it should be absorbing.
I know Kung Fu.
Because for me, I personally get burnt out and overwhelmed or forget things a lot more now because we are so inserted into everyone else's lives, global news, our own companies, whatever the hell's going on, clients, and all these things, right? So you have like 100 things all these touch points that are happening before your shower in the morning. You have absorbed information, your mind's already firing. Most of it isn't relevant to how we need to live our lives. Most of it just applies to their lives, but we are bringing that information in, right? We're absorbing that information for some reason, like we need it. And I think that's what I've started learning over the past few years is we should start pulling back a bit on what we're absorbing from other people's lives and focusing on the people around us and our lives and our loved ones and our significant others. Aww. And the social media thing, for me, it's getting a little gross. I still engage and I still enjoy seeing other people's feeds and whatever other funny videos of people getting hurt.
It's an interesting thought to think about. Like, what if 20 years from now, people were just fed up, just sick of it?
No,
I think they were so. I mean, it's probably not realistic to think about, but what if there was a future where social media and just always being consumed by this got tired and got old? I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's probably not going to happen. At the same time, you never know.
But basically, getting back into the design world that you and I live in, designers have a tool set. When they... This kid.
Did I make a funny face?
You were like, you burped and you were like, ugh.
But drinking, I'm like my sixth beer. Of course I'm gonna burp.
That was funny. Sorry. Hold on. All right. So basically in the design world, a designer, whether they're starting out, in the middle, or at the end of their career, has accumulated such a massive amount of tools, right? Right?
Yes, Lance. Yes.
So what's...
Keep it going, man. Keep it going.
This gets harder.
Alcohol doesn't always make things easier. When it comes to thinking,
me have another
when
sip.
it comes to thinking, it makes things harder.
So basically,
that's why this is so fun.
Right, exactly. This should be all a part of it, by the way. So really, when it comes down to a designer and his tool set or her tool set,
way to be inclusive.
Different projects, different clients, and technology really drives a lot of the tool belt that the designer has to have. And I guess my question to you is how you, in Handsome, really look at... Stop smiling.
I'm not allowed to smile? What is that? I can't smile, guys. No smiling allowed. Can't smile. Throws Lance off completely. Can't smile. This is a no smiling zone.
Oh, jeez. Anyways, I guess.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. So
I'll
how
fix
does
my face.
no smile? So how does Handsome look at, I guess, the integration of new tools and new practices, right? So when you're looking at all the design tools that we use now, and when clients come in and say, hey, we use X, Y, and Z tools, you need to use these things. I guess my question to you would be, how do you adapt? How do you learn? What are the expectations behind the designer, right? Because they're the ones actually producing the actual work.
Oh, that's a long question.
We will adopt tools on the craft level,
Right.
right? So for product design or for traditional UX or whatever the case, project management may be.
Yeah.
We will once again be flexible to adapting to new tools that ultimately makes our job more efficient, right? I mean that's kind of a given too.
Yeah.
Because that's what's necessary. And in the end of the day, you're a business that you're paying people based on the amount of time they spend. You're selling people, I should say,
Right.
based on the amount of time they spend on something, right? Or the amount of, you're selling a deliverable, and how much time someone spends on that impacts how much margin you make, right?
Right.
So it's all about efficiency, and it's as a designer, personally, it's all about finding tools that allows us to realize a concept in its most true, real form as fast as possible.
Right.
So we'll always be adopting new tools that will allow us to do that.
How does Handsome look at design research and strategy, and how have you seen it best implemented, and where have you seen it fail, I guess? Like where
Yeah.
you go out and spend
That's a good
weeks
question.
or months,
Yeah.
right? And seeing
Yeah,
this
no,
churn, and then you implement it and you're
Right.
like, ugh.
well, it's not as much about it implementing it. It's when it doesn't work is when you only provide half the pieces to the puzzle.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That
Right.
that makes the most sense, right?
Yeah.
Like when you think about strategy isn't just talking to the people that are trying to use the product and coming up with solutions based on that.
Yeah.
That's going to limit you because they have no awareness around the business that the product is for. Right? They have no understanding of the landscape of the industry that business is in. They have no understanding of where the competitors are at and what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right? They're just giving their biased opinion
Right.
on, the questions they're being asked.
Yeah.
Right. So when it comes down to strategy, it can't just be what are the users saying, but you have to connect the dots of what the users are saying with where the business is wanting to go.
Yeah.
And where the business is wanting to go based on what value they bring compared to their competitors within the market, right? Where
Yeah.
the market's going, so forth and
Right.
so on, right? So there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle that have to be there in order to actually make the puzzle, right? You have to have 500 pieces to make the puzzle. You can't just have half of it, right?
Do you start with the edges?
If you think about it, right, like designers are artists in the end of the day.
Right.
I mean, there's definitely a difference between art and design. We won't get into that. But a great designer is a great designer because they don't necessarily follow the rules.
Right.
If you get any great designer in history, they aren't following the rules.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to force constraints on a designer, their constraints are important, but otherwise, if you don't balance the objective and the subjective nature of
Yeah.
design, you're going to get a mediocre experience. Because in the end of the day, when it comes down to digital products, what keeps people coming back to them is understanding the emotional side of humans and how you can connect your design to that emotional state, right? And there's so much more to that than just designing for objectivity,
Right.
You have to inject your subjective opinion around how you want this experience to be interpreted through the designer perspective in order to truly obtain the most value, I think, at the end of the day.
It's deep, bro.
It's deep.
So deep.
I gotta piss.
That's what happens when you've had, like, I don't know, how many beers are we on?
A lot.
That was a good cut. See you next time at the Between Two Urinals for joining me on my Something to Drink About tour in Austin.
Sure, man.
Coming to a theater near you. For being a part of this show, Something to Drink About. That was for Something to Drink About.
You just gotta commit. You gotta commit. Every time you try to commit, you talk shit about yourself midway through.
I'm my own worst critic, man.
You're your own worst critic.